Episode 13. The penultimate episode of Season 2 of the Orville. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. That's an extra and. But that also has to do with the... it may come from... just reading the wiki, it may come from... where Macbeth... from Shakespeare's Macbeth says, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death.
Poetic.
Well, yes.
But okay, so
It starts there sitting around reminiscing about telling old stories, embarrassing stories. Fun times. And
yeah,
it's nice that Tala gets to join in because you get the three old friends and then Tala.
yeah, yeah, and the main sort of thrust of the episode is, you aren't who you were 7 years ago. You don't
Yeah.
you don't realize how much you change bit by bit.
You evolve.
Yeah, because you have the whole situation is basically, you know, getting a second chance with Grayson that, with him in proper work-life balance is now sort of figured out. He's a captain now, and he's not all over the place, and there's never been the cheating hasn't happened between them, so they don't have that, and it's just like, well, yeah, it seems reasonable to just start over, just none of the
Yeah,
problems.
but
But
then
then he
he
realizes,
realizes it's not the same because they've both changed, and also though he's still in love with his Kelly,
yes,
and even though it's technically the same Kelly,
they're
it's
not the
not
same, because the
because
old Kelly started slamming drinks down his throat, and he never liked that, but he put up with it because he liked Kelly.
yeah,
Um, and he realizes that, yeah, I didn't like that, and he realizes that he also has grown out of the doo 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 doo, 1,000
although to
decibel
be
club.
fair, I've always been out of that. That is just so obnoxious.
Yeah, yeah. Some people, yeah. I've never been in there either. It's just like, okay, smelly and noisy, and no, thank you. Um, like, no, thanks. I'd rather not. But some people, it's like, yeah, it's the thing you do. You go to these really loud party club, these clubs. They're really loud, and it's like, oh, and then we get to see
The
Clyden and
mating
Bortus.
dance of
Oh
the
yes,
Mocklin.
this is very
This
similar to a
reminds
mating
me.
dance on Mockless.
This reminds me of the mating song, the song to the mating dance on Mockless. Come join us, Capt. No, I'm good. I'm going to enjoy my drink. The bathroom, it's that way.
Yeah, that was a pretty good running gag. It's like, no, bathrooms that way. Oh, yeah, that was worth 10 seconds of, it's just
It's
just to see
not
Bortus and
nice.
Clyden dancing. My God.
Yes, that was worth. Oh my gosh, and Yaphet dancing. Yaphet dancing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I mean, Clyden, Bortus, Mortis is the main treat there, given how stoic he is. Seeing
True.
him dance is just like, hmm.
I mean, true. That those dance moves are something else. But watching Yaphet dance made me think of a semi-fluid. You know, the as like when you mix cornstarch and water on a
Yeah,
speaker
oobleck.
and turn it on and watch it just like
Oh,
bounce like
yeah.
that. That's what it made me think of.
Well, the
Although
knock.
Mark Beeks would be perfectly at home here. It's his kind of music. It's kind of sad that that survived.
It reminds me of the
Or it's a retro club.
Maybe.
second Deadpool movie where he asks Cable, Is dubstep still alive in the future?"
Oh yeah.
Or, because then you got to think about what time period this is supposed to happen. Like, this is like, we're medieval compared to them. Like,
Yeah.
so
That would
it's
be
like,
like
this would be like going to a medieval
Renaissance
times.
fair. This is more of a Renaissance fair type music.
Yeah. But, um, but yeah, that's the whole sort of premise of it is, yes, he's entirely, he's in love with the idea of who Kelly was back then and the Kelly he loves now, and he's just like, oh, I can get everything I want. Kelly doesn't want to be with me because it's a problem. It's not that she doesn't love him, but that it it just it couldn't work out, like, because
It's a
it would
conflict of
complicate
interest.
their relationship so much, their working relationship especially, considering captain and first officer. It'll compromise his ability to be objective.
Mm-hmm. It's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. Whereas new Kelly, or old Kelly, or Kelly from the past,
Young Kelly and old Kelly.
yeah,
Like,
That's an
Kelly from
insult right there.
yeah,
Like,
Ke-
can we just not say young Kelly and old Kelly, please?
Kelly 1 and Kelly 2.
Kelly from the past doesn't have those hang-ups because she's still just a lieutenant. She's not, first officer, so doesn't have to worry about that. Yeah, Mercer's gotten his work-life balance mostly sort of worked out, and he's learned from that moment, and so it's like everything seems like this is Kelly, but without all the things that are keeping us apart, the infidelity, the which he's mostly, I think he's forgiven her for that pretty much at this point, because
Oh
like
yeah,
they know
he was an
they
accident.
know exactly why things happen the
Yeah,
way they
it
did. It's
wasn't.
like,
It wasn't even her fault, really.
yeah, I was like, she was under the influence of an alien, thing, but it was
It would have.
it was less of a, that was just a big red sign that sort of, you know ended what was already, it was already dying, and it just put it out of its misery because
Yeah.
he wasn't around enough. But
Yeah.
It's nice to see Isaac is still around, although it is
True.
sad that he and Finn aren't together anymore.
It is true.
They were like the
Right.
best couple on the ship.
They might get back together sometime in the future, but we'll have to see.
well,
Yeah.
they're the most.
I mean-
they were the most oddly enough, one of the most well-adjusted the crew.
Yeah.
It's like, it took some adjusting, but Clayton and Bortus, it's like, yes, like
They are so dysfunctional,
they're
man.
so dysfunctional. They've been together a while and they're married, but they're very dysfunctional. Like Clayton tried to kill Bortus. It's like,
Yeah,
that's
but that was
Mockless.
just
It's Mockless
before.
things, but that's still.
But
Yeah.
also, Clyden is an asshole. He is a complete straight up dick.
Yes.
And Bortus is very stoic and very like stick up the butt, but Clyden is a complete a-hole.
Yeah. And Bortus can be a bit stiff and, not, not accommodating in that way, but he does genuinely, his time on board has genuinely softened him from what he was when he began. At least on the idea of Mocklin females. He was originally so dead set against it, and then he saw Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and, whatnot, and just like, no, this is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Although we get more examples of why John didn't want to become chief engineer. It's like, dude, anybody can do this. Yeah, but we'll sleep better at night knowing you're taking care of it. You know what? Just take a sleeping pill. When you're the boss, you have to do all the annoying jobs that nobody else wants to.
Well, all the important ones.
Yeah, that
honestly,
even
if you're a boss, you're mostly trying to delegate as much as you can off. Like anything, like you try and delegate to who you can, what you can. It's like, yeah, you can handle this. All right, you're doing that.
Yeah, but even a first-year cadet knows how to do that.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, but we want you to do it.
I had to leave the bridge.
Exactly.
Take the chief engineer job. It'll be fun, they said. It'll be a new experience, they said. Oy.
It would have been funny if if at some point Kelly would have been, oh boy, because they actually did make a quantum leap like comment, but not based on the show. Just used the term quantum leap.
I can see that.
And so I'm just like, no. If they're going to use the term quantum leap, they have to say, oh boy, at some point. They did
if they mention quantum leap, they should also close by mention like the USS Archer or the whatever the designation for the Union ship is. Union ship, the Archer. It's like, yep, that was a reference to Scott Bakula.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or even like Sam Beckett at some point. Have a crew member named Sam Beckett. Or even Bakula being in there at some point.
That would be funny. I could totally see if. I mean, he's he's with NCIS New Orleans, so he's. I don't know what his contract looks like because since he is the guy, he is the.
But it is both CBS. Oh, wait, no, that's Fox. Sorry.
Yeah, Orville's Fox.
Yeah, so
so he may have a clause in his contract where, yes, you are the star and we will pay you loads of money, but you are not allowed to go on other networks without our permission. Now, if he wanted to go on to Star Trek, that would be fine with them because it's a CBS thing.
Yeah, but Star Trek sucks.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to go on there.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see what his I would love to take some time and look at his. I'd have to look at the timeline to see where Enterprise ends and TOS. It's like 10 years. Discovery is 10 years before TOS, but after Enterprise. I wonder how old would Archer be at the beginning of Discovery? Would he be dead at that point?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I think it's supposed to be 100 years before.
Oh yeah, 100 years
Kirk
before Kirk was alive.
was alive. Yeah.
So yeah,
But it
we remember
takes
our
100
facts
years
through
before Kirk
through,
was
through
alive.
Voltaire,
Yeah.
through Voltaire songs.
Hey, where do you think I learned how to say quadratic-chicale? Quadratric. You see, I can't say it unless I'm singing it.
Oh well, you know. Just bounce the graviton particle beam off the main deflector
Off the main
dish.
deflector dish.
Okay,
It's funny because they did something similar in an. Didn't they do something similar in an episode of Orville?
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look. That would be an interesting thing to look up. It's like, did you ever actually bounce a graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish? I would do that. I would want to do that just for the sake of just, you know, if I have to come up with a technobabble for something, bounce the freaking graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish. That's what we do.
We're making shit up as we wish.
The Klingons
So-
and the Romulans, they pose no threat to us.
To
Because
us.
if we find we're
If we're in a bind, we just make some shit up. They did a good job making the Kellys distinguishable.
They did.
Like you can tell that she was younger, or supposed to be younger.
Yeah, and they, because they always kept the clothes different. Even the, you know, like, the clothes different or the color different. Because,
Yeah, it was her. It was just the makeup mostly and the hair, especially the fringe, because regular Kelly doesn't really have doesn't have the fringe up in the in her hair, and then that Kelly has it and had like the wispier hair.
But yeah, but they were also
she has subtler makeup too.
Yeah, and on top of that, they did the whole, we're gonna keep their clothes different as well. So even if you weren't doing that, we know this and that. Like, her original sort of pajamas were one thing, and then when she does put on a uniform, it's green, not blue.
Yeah.
And she's a lieutenant instead of commander.
And she's a science officer, not a
Command.
Yeah. And Ed and Kelly have gotten really close over this past couple of years, because now he's defending her infidelity, even though obviously we all know that what happened, but even after that, he was still a little touchy about it, and he would actually rub it in her face. And now it's like, well, I mean, it was an accident, and she slipped and fell on his dick. So and I wasn't there enough, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down, I mean, the initial Orville sort of situation, from what we understood, it was he wasn't there. She was, both sides had committed some sins, some relationship sins. Hers were more pronounced in one quick. Hers were quick, and very, very deep. His were more. They were still bad, but they were subtle and over a longer period of time. They were both guilty of things, but then we find out later that she wasn't really, she wasn't really it wasn't really infidelity, because she didn't really have much of a.
It was basically rape.
Yeah. He basically roofied her with his
with his pheromones.
pheromones, and and so that probably, it ended up being for the best because it ended up, making them look at the relationship anyway, which was in a bad state as it was, and was probably needed to end anyway, given he wasn't putting in the effort on his end. He was letting his work-life balance get way out of hand. But
And they make better friends than romantic partners.
yeah, it works out, because she doesn't hate him, it works out because she knows him better than he knows himself sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you can do this. I know you can. You just don't think very much of yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
I got a B+ in quantum theory. I thought you of all people would have gotten an A. It's quantum
nobody
theory.
gets an A in
Nobody gets an A.
in temporal mechanics
Nope.
or whatever it was.
Quantum theory, I think it was.
Well, they was talking about, they were talking about temporal stuff, and it was like, I'd rather chew glass than get into a discussion on temporal theory. It's like,
yeah. It's
yeah.
like nobody gets an A because nobody really understands it. That makes me wonder about the teachers themselves.
Yeah. In the immortal words of Chief O'Brien, I hate temporal mechanics.
Yeah. I love it and hate it at the same time.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
And oh my gosh, I want to spoil things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end, all we know at the end of this episode, and it is a much better episode when you realize what it leads to, and the next episode is very good.
I actually, at the end of my notes, although I still have a bunch of notes through, but she cut ties with Ed before they even had a second date. Makes me wonder if they created a temporal fragment and created a variant future, or if the present is going to be different in the next episode.
Oh yeah.
And I really can't wait to see the next one now. Which I wrote that before the season finale came out. So
yeah, it was always, when you leave it on a hanger like that, where it's like, she changed the timeline, what actually happened, and even without getting into spoiler territory, temporal episodes are tricky, and getting them right can be, they can if they're done right, they can be amazing. If they're done wrong, they can be really goofy.
I think this one was done really well.
Yeah, its next episode is done really well. And
I mean, the within my notes, I still miss Alara, but I love Tala. She's so much tougher, but still kind and understanding. She has that beautiful duality to her.
Yeah.
She's a badass, but still the nice, friendly BFF.
I don't know. I like them both.
I do too. I mean, I said I still miss.
Yeah,
Alara,
I'm not saying you didn't
Alara,
like them. I just like them both. Like maybe even Alara a little bit more, but that's mostly because familiarity and
you've known her longer.
She's been around on the show longer, so I just sort of you get attached to characters, and it's like when one of them leaves, it's like,
yeah, I know.
At least they didn't kill her off, but it's still, I liked her. But the jar of pickles was just beautiful, and the whole sort of her finishing when she left, and she left him a jar of pickles. It's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense if you haven't seen the show. But if you have, that's incredibly. That's it's an incredibly poignant gift. It's like, here's a Here's a
But
jar
my
of pickles.
question is, did she loosen it for him?
Or did she clamp it tight?
And the Lieutenant Grayson getting told off for telling funny stories. I know how that feels all too well, because tact is hard.
Yeah, that is one of those things where it's like, yes, you have a whole other you that's not so careful about telling old stories and is like spewing things that you've carefully avoided. It's like,
Yeah.
all these years I've carefully avoided telling anybody these stories because, well, at the time they were fun. They don't
I
really
have
reflect how I feel about them now.
Yeah.
and I have a reputation to uphold.
Yes.
Although, albeit her reputation is a a drunkard who likes marijuana, who has weapon grade marijuana, but still.
True.
And Ed sucks at video games, which it figures the Tom Paris of the series would be good at him.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
that's no, you have to hit up and left at the same time. I'm doing that. No. You're also supposed to tap the B key. I
Pretty-
don't have 3 hands.
Yeah. Not an octopus.
Well, I mean, Kelly might disagree with that.
But anyway, yeah, and Malloy was right. Don't do this. I had to
Yeah.
scrape you up off the floor last time. I don't want to have to do
Mhm.
that again.
Although I think in Kelly's case, like Commander Grayson's case, part of it is she feels like she's getting replaced by her younger self, because she still loves Ed and she knows she can't be with him, but then she sees her younger self with him, and
That's frustrating.
it's frustrating because she can't be like, hey, no, what about me? And also she sees all her friends, getting all these funny stories and being all cool with her younger self, and it's really frustrating because she's feeling like the odd one out now.
Yeah. And there's also the whole string of she's disappointed in herself.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a captain and have a family and do all this stuff. And when I get here, what do I find? You're not a captain. You haven't. You're a divorcee. And it's like, oh, yep. Didn't go quite as planned, but she's got a lot of good things going for her.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they made up at the end with that because,
Yeah.
they realized that, yes, they're different, but there is a bit of each other in them.
Yeah.
Because, well, you do change over time, and none of us are the same person we were 7, even 3 years ago. But at the same time, we still have those characteristics and we have those past experiences. We've just evolved past them. And coming from me, that's a loaded statement. After the 4th drink, everything you said is a loaded statement. Oh, that was a dad joke. You just told a dad joke. Yeah, you want to kiss your dad goodnight? I think Kelly and the doctor both prove that it's hard to get along with yourself. Because the doctor and his past selves, and Kelly and her past self, meeting yourself at different times is kind of frustrating.
overall, a fun episode.
It's nice that the ship has a convenient off button. It's like, quick, turn off the power. And luckily it's a big ship so that they didn't run out of air when the life support went off.
Yeah, that's the thing with, whenever you hear somebody say, oh, reroute life support to this, it's like, well,
You got a few hours of life support, depending on how many people are there.
yeah, it's not fun, but
Mhm.
it's like turning the AC off for a while. It's not going to be fun, but you can deal with it for a while.
Yeah. It's not going to kill you after just a few hours.
Yeah, depending on
It depends on
metabolisms
how many
and
people are there,
yeah.
how much oxygen they're using, etc. And if worse comes to worse, they can tell everybody to take a nap. Just send everybody off duty who doesn't need to be there. And they did have interesting logic with their temporal theories. That Commander Grayson doesn't know about the events because the mind wipe worked. But
spoilers, but
no, I
well,
know.
I mean later on, yeah.
Although when I was talking about spoilers, I was talking about something else. But as far as it's an interesting thought because there's the whole concept of temporal fragmentation and causality, and that is already your past. So in order to protect physics and avoid a paradox, you can't have
there's two ways to look
affect
at
the
it.
future.
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. Either usually with time travel, there's two ways to deal with it. There's the dealing with it by creating alternate timelines, or by saying you can't actually change the future. Anything you do was supposed to happen anyway, and you'll end up fixing everything so it happens exactly as it does in the future.
Kind of like in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the way they described time was you take a notebook and draw a dot at two different points and draw a line between them and then try to flip the book. You can change the pages, but it still ends up going the same way. Or something along those lines.
Yeah, those are generally the two theories. You go back in the past and you change things. You either create an alternate timeline or you can't actually change things. Like if you tried to go back and kill Hitler, it wouldn't work because, it didn't happen. So if you tried to kill him, it wouldn't work because...
And keep, in fact, the paradox concept from the time machine where you literally cannot do it because that is the reason you went back in time. Therefore, you cannot go back in time to do it because you do not have the means to go back in time if that event never happened.
Yeah, you don't... Yeah, you remove your own motivation and, from and you end up in a paradox if you do that where, so...
Yeah, if you have a paradox, they're going to argue with each other.
I don't know, they might agree. It depends on what the diagnosis is. That was a dad joke.
Yeah, it was.
I just told a dad joke.
You want to come kiss your dad goodnight? Oh, God.
But yeah, so I mean, you couldn't go back and kill Hitler because you would remove your own reason for going back, and you just create a loop. And there's also looking at it from the perspective of history has already happened the way it's happened because that's exactly what happens. And if you try and go back, just because that's not how history happened, you can't actually affect anything. You could, talk with people, you could see things, but if you tried to, say, pull a gun and shoot Hitler, it wouldn't work because the gun would jam or it would fall down, or you'd find out you'd been sold a flawed one, or you'd be caught and you would be stopped before you could get close enough or something like that, and it wouldn't work. Something would happen despite your best efforts and you couldn't actually do it just because that's what the timeline was at the end of it. But I hate temporal mechanics.
I love it.
I just like O'Brien.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? O'Brien's awesome.
I like it. I like engineers in general. It's like my Star Trek Next Generation figurine wasn't Picard, wasn't Riker, it was Geordi LaForge. Like,
well, I mean, who didn't love Geordi too? When I was a kid, those headbands that have like the little teeth?
Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this.
I would put them over my eyes and walk around pretending I was Geordi.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, I like the chief engineers.
Was B'Elanna your favorite?
My favorite one.
No, I don't mean your favorite engineer. I mean your favorite Voyager.
On Voyager?
Because I mean, she was the chief engineer.
Probably. she's up there. Though I did kind of like... in some ways, I did kind of like Harry Kim just because he was so... put upon by everything. It's just like...
Actually, the irony of this statement, or coincidence of this statement, technically, is those are the two Voyager characters I roleplay.
Yeah.
I play B'Elanna and Harry Kim. My Harry Kim Twitter account is Unlucky Ensign.
Yeah, it's a running joke how much he gets sort of...
He gets shafted. Every time it's something bad happens to him. He is the Kenny of the of the Voyager family.
Yeah, he gets the rough end of the stick. I mean, Lindsay Ballard. All I have to do is say that name, and you're like, yeah, I know, you know exactly what I'm on about.
Yeah,
it's like Lindsay freaking Ballard. Come on, poor guy.
Right.
But yeah, I liked Tom too. But like,
well, I mean, they were like Sean and Gus of Voyager. You can't have one without the other.
And part of what makes Kim fun is Tom giving him grief.
Yeah. Harry Kim was the Gus, and Tom was the Sean.
But getting back to the Orville, where are you on the?
I finished my notes.
Okay.
Mostly because a lot of the stuff was stuff we covered while we were discussing, and they were close enough to my notes that I'm just like, no point in listing them.
No point in rehashing them. I already got what I wanted out of that part of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But I really wanted to spoil Endgame now because it ties so well with our discussion.
Okay, well, anyway, I think that's a good place to stop then.
Yep, and almost exactly noon.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
I think Mayrock died.
At some point, yes, but we're keeping up the conversation enough that you the viewers probably didn't notice.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, when I start talking temporal mechanics, I mean, I get all wibbly wobbly and
timey-wimey. Just out the gate. All right, well, stopping stream in 3, 2.
And it's already you were